Hey everyone, welcome back to FSi DFS. Looking at the 8-game main slate here on Wednesday night. There's a preview video out for the early slate as well. We got a couple of hours before that one locks, so go ahead and check that. But for now, let's dive in here. Please hit that subscribe button. It really does help us out as we head off to 5,000 subscribers. Pitching's loaded on this slate. There is one guy who is just way too cheap and is probably going to be uber chalk, especially in cash games, so get off of him in tournaments. And then there's one specific batter who got completely mispriced, and I don't know what happened to the DK algorithm, but he saw a just drastic drop. So yeah, let's start off in this top tier. So Reagan's all the way down to Cole. These are the guys who are 9K and above. Cole, he's looked absolutely solid in his rehab starts, absolutely dominant. It is the minor leagues, though. He's now got a brutal matchup facing off against Baltimore and their high-powered offense, just in a tough pitcher's park as well. And honestly, I have a little bit of hesitation with the Yankees allowing him to be like, all right, you're going out there and you're pitching 100 pitches. I don't think it's going to be happening. I think that he maxes out at maybe around like 90 pitches, but it also wouldn't completely shock me if he goes and they pull him at 80. So I think anywhere between that like 80 to 90 range is probably expected. So with a slight pitch count limitation, brutal matchup, tough ballpark, I think this 9K price tag is reasonable and justifiable for him. It's certainly enticing, but there's so many other options that we have available to us. I don't think it's a necessity to get to goal. Freddie Peralta, solid pitcher. We know his upside, great matchup, but he just has not been as consistent as these other three guys are. And all these three other guys are also in phenomenal spots. Which leads us to Reagan's, Ryan, and Crochet. If you want to put Crochet as your number one, if you want to put Ryan as your number one, I could 100% listen to that argument or, listen to that, whatever you want to say. Garrett Crochet, he's facing off against Houston, a Houston team that does not have Kyle Tucker, a Houston team that might not have Alvarez in the lineup either with injury. So all of a sudden you're left to Altuve, Bregman, and just the rest of the lineup. Like, this offense has been very disappointing all season long. And Crochet has been absolutely dominant, especially lately. He's 3 of his past 4 starts. He's got over 10 strikeouts. He's got a strikeout rate close to 40%. Like, that's video game DeGrom numbers from years ago that he's putting up recently. Is it sustainable? I don't know. He's been really, really good. He only had that little tiny stretch earlier on the season where he seemed to be kind of human again, but he's been phenomenal. Don't mind him and listening to him as your SP1. Ryan, very consistent, solid floor, good upside, nice matchup against Tampa Bay, who, again, their offense should not scare you one bit. But I am going to go with Reagan's as my favorite pitcher up on the board up top here. But who knows? Maybe it changes as lineups come out and maybe some guys are missing or whatnot, and things get a little bit shifted. But I think for now, Reagan's going to be my number one. Faced off against this Oakland team earlier on the season, 31 DK points, just absolutely dominated them. 7 innings pitched, no earned runs, 7 strikeouts. And he's been very, very consistent and dominant kind of all season long. You can see in his past 10 starts, he only has 2 starts where he allowed more than 2 earned runs. Everything else is mostly 0s and 1s all throughout the board. Just did have a little bit of struggle in LA against the Dodgers and against the Angels. So, hey, who knows? Maybe he can't pitch in California. Maybe that's the deal and you got to feed him. No, that's crazy. Don't listen to that. But yeah, Reagan's, there's so many top options up here. Into the mid-tier, Gausman and Bradley kind of alone there in terms of salary. I really don't have too much interest in either of these guys. I think Gausman gives you a little bit of a better floor against Boston. Bradley's facing off against Minnesota. His strikeout rate is very high, and I think he's more of like a ceiling play if you are going to be playing him. So I would take Gausman's floor. I would take Bradley's ceiling. It's kind of what I'm trying to say here. But Bradley's got a tougher matchup against Minnesota. A lot of lefties in this Minnesota lineup who can certainly get to Bradley. And I think it makes the Minnesota, GPP stack really intriguing as well, because if they can get to Bradley, and when Bradley struggles, he struggles. And if they can do that, they get to that Tampa Bay bullpen quicker, and the Tampa Bay bullpen, bottom 5 bullpen in the entire league so far all season long. So really intriguing in that regard. Then I feel like there's like a really big gap, and then you got Miller coming back off of the IL, and really Miller should probably be going more over into the fade no interest category. Coming off the IL, he was struggling in his rehab assignments as well, facing off in Coors. The 7.6K price tag is intriguing, especially for a pitcher with his talent. But I don't know, the struggles that he's been having, even in the minors, Coors Field, I don't think that I'm going to have too much interest in him in that regard. Going down in the cheap salary, Hunter Brown. This is like your uber mega super chalk. That's probably everybody's going to be having in their cash games. Great matchup against the White Sox. He has been awesome. Absolutely awesome over his past 4 to 5 starts, and his salary has really remained unchanged. If anything, it's dropped 200 for whatever reason, even after going 8 strikeouts in his past 4 starts, 4 earned run. Like, he's been awesome. He's going to be in every single cash build. Maybe not every single one. He's going to be in a lot because we have the Dodgers and Coors. You need the salary. You need the savings somewhere. So it's going to be Brown, and it's going to be either Reagan's Ryan or Crochet that people are going to be pairing him with so that they can jam in a lot of those top Dodgers bats. And then, after Brown, big gap. Maybe Povich. Povich is like a higher strikeout guy, but Yankees, they don't really strike out as a team. So not a whole lot of interest there. And then Heaney, he's more in the fade, no interest category as well. So a lot of high salary pitchers, and then Brown. I feel like that's kind of where it's a limited pitcher pool. Heading towards the bats. I already talked about the Dodgers. I mean, I'm not even going to spend too much time on this. It's the Dodgers in Coors facing off against Feldner. Put them in there. They're super expensive, but some of the lefties that are in the lineup are a little bit more affordable, so it's entirely possible that you can get there. Guys like Jason Hayward, 3.8, Lux, Biggio, these are very affordable, sub 4K guys that you can jam into your lineup. Ohtani, obviously, would be my favorite option, but that price tag, 7K on Ohtani, wow. After them, I really like Texas facing off against Shamanaya. For the Mets, pull them up here. And the one batter who I mentioned, he got completely, I don't know what happened to the algorithm, but Adolis Garcia facing off against Manaya. Yeah, he struggled recently, but just like a random sudden 1,200 salary drop makes no sense at all. He was $1,400 more expensive just 3 games ago. So I think that Texas is really intriguing, especially with all the righties and the power that they do have. Manaya, he's a pitcher where he can get a little bit loose with his control. Certainly allows a lot of hard contact, a lot of fly balls, and Texas is certainly going to be up there. One of my favorite teams on this board. Milwaukee, they have one of the higher implied run totals on the board, facing off against, oh my goodness, I'm moving this thing all around here. Facing off against the Angels, it's more so I'm trusting Vegas here in terms of they really think that Milwaukee's going to be able to do very well. Anderson isn't like a slouch pitcher by any means, so I was a little bit shocked to see that Milwaukee had the second highest implied run total on the board. But I'm going to trust Vegas with that. I'm going to kind of put them towards one of the top tier stacks. GPP though, the Mets. The power of Grimace. Grimace throws out the first pitch, and they're 7-0 since. These guys are streaking, and they're facing off against Andrew Heaney. Heaney, in years past, he had that strikeout upside. It's certainly slowed down, though, this year and last year. But especially this year, that strikeout rate just isn't there. But he's still allowing a lot of, hard contact, fly balls, and home runs were his issue for years, and it's still kind of his issue. The Mets are streaking, so I'm definitely going to have interest in them. It's probably my favorite GPP stack here tonight. Pete Alonso, we know what he's capable of against left-handed pitching. 5K, wouldn't shock me if he's able to hit a home run here tonight. But you got guys like Vientos and Lindor. Lindor's been smashing the ball as of late. You can see almost 11 DK points averaging over the past 10 games. And his hot streak has been going on for a couple of weeks at this point. The numbers on the season don't look too great, but that's just because of how bad he was. He was batting barely 100 for the first 3 weeks of the season. It was really atrocious. But Lindor is certainly back, and I really like what these Mets bats could potentially do here tonight against Andrew Heaney. After the Mets, we're going to go with Colorado and Coors facing off against Bobby Miller. Again, solid pitcher, but Coors is Coors, and Miller's really struggled in his rehab assignments. So I certainly think that this Colorado team can get to them, and then Minnesota rounding or after that, just because I already talked about it. They're really good against right-handed pitchers. Bradley, limited floor, and if they can get him and chase him out early, they get that Tampa Bay bullpen for an extended period of time. A Tampa Bay bullpen, which is bottom 5 in the entire league. Over to the cheap tier, we're going to go with Kansas City, and then honestly, nobody else. And even Kansas City, I wouldn't even classify as cheap. But over half their lineup here tonight is going to be 3-6 and cheaper. So I do think that I could classify them as cheap. Melendez certainly in play at 3.3K. Velasquez too. But if I was going with KC, I would probably be sticking up a little bit more towards the top. Miguel Garcia, he's been looking a lot better. He's kind of been like Francisco Lindor in that started the season off just awfully and has certainly ramped things up in terms of production and everything over the past month or so. But I think that KC is certainly I almost want to put them more towards they're with the Texas, Milwaukee here, behind the Dodgers. I think they're a top team or a top offense to stack here. Same with the Mets, a top offense to stack as well. So hopefully this is able to guide you in the correct direction on where you want to go and where the brain is sinking. But definitely Brown is going to be ultra uber chalk, especially in cash games. And then jam in one of these top guys, and I could listen to Reagan, Ryans, or Crochet being your top. And then Garrett Cole, 9K price tag, very enticing, very intriguing, but I got a little bit of hesitation with him, and there's other options that you can go to. So good luck in your contest. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.